I'm the type of guy who will often believe that it can be both. It doesn't always have to be one or the other. It can be both. If somebody asks you, am I just stupid or blah, blah, blah? It can be both. All right. It can be that you are dumb and this is a set of extenuating circumstances. But that's not always the case. And so if that's not always the case, that means somebody between Notre Dame and USC is lying, because they both say they want to continue playing one another throughout the college football season. They have met 95 times since 1926, which means them not playing each other is awful sporadic. And I think that the overwhelming majority of people would tell you that Notre Dame playing USC is good for Notre Dame. It's good for USC. It's good for college football as a whole. It's good for everybody that's involved. And yet, for some reason, they have not been able to extend their agreement past this upcoming season. And if they both say that they want to continue playing and they haven't come to an agreement, logic would tell you that means somebody's lying. So we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to figure out who's telling the truth and who's lying. I've got two statements from USC's athletic department and Notre Dame's athletic department, and we're going to parse out who's telling the truth and who's lying. We'll start first with Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua, who says, I think Southern Cal and Notre Dame should play every year for as long as college football is played, and SC knows that's how we feel. That is a pretty strong statement. Pretty on the record, hey, we want this game to continue. And we believe that in our hearts of hearts that we should play every single year. That, I don't know how you could look at that and go, Notre Dame's the one that's lying. Notre Dame doesn't want to play that. Doesn't play every year. That's the athletic director, dude who sets the schedule, saying we want to play them every year. You look at USC on the other side of the coin, though. Their statement is, we want the USC-Notre Dame rivalry to continue, which is why we offered an extension of our agreement. It's a special game to our fans and our institution. We will continue to work with Notre Dame on scheduling future games. That is also, on the surface, a pretty cut and dry statement. We are working with them. We want this to continue, and that's why we offered an extension. Except that one leaves a little bit more wiggle room than Notre Dame's does, doesn't it? Notre Dame says, undeniably, we want this game to continue. We believe that every year that the sport of college football is played, that Notre Dame should play Southern Cal. That is as definitive as it gets. Where USC's is not quite as strong. Now, I'm not willing to say that it's wishy-washy, right? I'm not willing to go out on a limb and say that USC is pretending that they want to keep the game, because I don't think that that's 100% fair. It certainly sounds as if USC wants the game to continue on USC's terms. That there have been reports that USC would like the game to be the season opener every year going forward. Because, one, they are worried about the extra travel that they have now in the Big Ten, which I think is a fair thing to be a little apprehensive about. Whether that should be how you deal with your rivalry game from here on out, that feels a little ridiculous, because one, ain't Notre Dame's problem. That is a USC problem. USC decided to take the bag from the Big Ten. That is USC's problem to figure out. If they feel as if the game against Notre Dame is still important enough to play every year, you're just going to have to buck up, Buttercup. You're going to have to figure out how to just deal with the fact that, oh my gosh, we've got to fly to the Eastern time zone again every other year. That's just on you. You've got to figure that out. But then also, it kind of limits what Notre Dame can do or wants to do with their schedule of we're going to have 4 or 5 ACC games every year. And then if you want to slam us by putting us at the season begins every year with Notre Dame and USC, that limits Notre Dame's schedule. So I completely understand why the Fighting Irish might not want to agree to that. But then also, by moving it to the start of the season, USC can't play the we're just so beat up from the Big Ten schedule. We had so many tough games in the rough and tumble Big Ten that's why we lost to Notre Dame. It wasn't because they were better than us. It's because we just had such a significantly more difficult schedule than Notre Dame does. And probably most importantly, you can say that it's about the travel. You can say that it's about wanting to put your best foot forward. USC doesn't want to take a loss in the final weeks of the season, right before the College Football Playoff Selection Committee sits down and figures out who the best 12, 14, or 16 teams is. And that's what this is about. At the end of the day, USC doesn't want to have to increase their schedule difficulty in a college football playoff world where somewhat increasingly, it's more likely that USC is going to be in a battle for spots number 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, rather than spots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I don't know that I can fault USC for one, kind of recognizing their spot in the sport right now. But then two, doing everything they can to make the college football playoff. Because if you get your foot in the door, who knows what's going to happen and if you can kick that bitch down. That's the name of the game, was getting to the dance and playing Notre Dame the final week of the regular season in some cases. Doesn't help USC's case more often than not to make a college football playoff. So if you put that game in week 1 rather than week 16 and you lose from USC's perspective, you get 11 more cracks, 11 more bites at the apple, 11 more chances to prove why you deserve to be in the college football playoff. You get embarrassed in game number 12, and that's the lasting impact that you leave with the committee. That's the taste that you leave in their mouths. Probably don't like your chances. So I believe that there's a little bit of goodwill on both sides. You look at what Notre Dame says. Notre Dame says, we want to play them guys every year. We want them to come here, and we want to go there. And I think that's a good thing for college football. Home and home games, especially rivalry games, is great for the sport. SC going to Notre Dame is good for college football. Notre Dame going to USC is good for college football. As long as college football is played, Notre Dame believes they should play Southern Cal. And then the other side of the coin is,
well, we offered them an agreement to our extension, but so far they have yet to accept.
That sounds like we're trying to do it. We want to do it on our terms. And maybe there's some finagle in there from the Big Ten that the Big Ten says, it sure would be better for the Big Ten if USC was playing Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Iowa, UCLA, Washington, Oregon. One of those teams in the final week of the season rather than Notre Dame. And maybe that's just a Big Ten ploy to stick it to the Irish. You don't want to join us? We'd be willing to put USC, Notre Dame at the same weekend every year. We'd be tell NBC we'll put that thing in prime time, all of those things. But Notre Dame doesn't want to join our conference. To hell with them. That could be at play too. But when you look at the statement from USC, it sure is less definitive than Notre Dame's, right? Notre Dame's essentially comes off as, we are willing to figure out a way to play them, whatever we got to do. We're just not going to give in to whatever demands the Trojans have. We're not just going to bend over backwards and say, whatever you guys say, yep, sounds good. You want 2-for-1s? Sure, we have to come out there twice. That's fine. We'll do it to continue that rivalry. I think that's where they're drawing the line. So maybe at the end of the day, it can be both. It can be both that they're both lying. They're both not telling the truth. Because if Notre Dame feels that strongly, if they say, hey, we believe that every year college football is played, USC and Notre Dame should play, and by God, if that means playing every year at their place, we're willing to do that. They didn't go that far. But that's a little obtuse. I think it's pretty clear to the average observer that USC is the hang-up. And I'm not going to go as far. I've seen other people say, well, it's because Lincoln Riley's afraid. Like, I'm not going to go that far. There's the narrative that Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma because he didn't want to play in the SEC, so he went to USC, and then USC joined the Big Ten, and he's like, oh, hell, what am I supposed to do now? I wouldn't necessarily go that far. But it sure doesn't help fight that narrative. It sure doesn't help fight that if the argument is USC wants to drop Notre Dame in exchange to play a Mountain West school every year on their schedule. It doesn't make the narrative that your coach is afraid of competition and kind of pussyfooting around the college football world because he doesn't want to have to play the big boys. It doesn't help that at all. But I think that's what I'm deducing from those statements. Notre Dame sure was pretty firm on the record of, we want to play USC. And USC was pretty firm on the record of, we'd be willing to continue to play Notre Dame if they agree to X, Y, Z. So, judgment for Notre Dame. I think USC is the one that is lying in this situation. But I want to know what you think. Who do you think is fibbing? Who do you think is telling the truth? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to read your thoughts on this one. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you get all the great college football content we're pumping out here at Saturday Glory. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.